Here. Councilmember Beek.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Daris.
Here.
Mayor Burbo.
Here.
All present.
Okay, with that, by the way, if you are attending in person, obviously, or if you're listening in tonight, welcome. We appreciate you following our deliberations. We'd like to begin this evening with presentations. Our city manager will announce some employee recognition awards.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and members of council. Appreciate that. Tonight, I have the privilege of honoring tenure of our employees. And as you know, this is a premier place to work, and we have a wonderful culture and truly an employee family. So we love to recognize every 5 years our employees for their tenure and their incredible service to our city. So you were telling me? Cody Ferris, fire. We're recognizing him for 5 years of service. Come on up here. Is he here? Cody grew up in Chico and received his Bachelor in Science degree in geography at UC Santa Barbara. Cody then attended the Butte College Fire Academy in 2013, focusing on his Firefighter 1 certification. And from then, after the academy, he spent 5 seasons working for the United States Forest Service in the Santa Barbara area. We hired Cody in July 2019. He was appointed a fire engine operator in 2021. Cody handles the ordering and maintenance of our department personal protective equipment and uniforms. He is a member of our special events work group and a North County Urban Search and Rescue team member. Cody always has a positive attitude and provides excellent service to our community. In his free time, he enjoys traveling, spending time with his extended family, and cheering for the 49ers. So congratulations, Cody. I'm trying to see if I have, okay. Steve Stuckey, Officer Stuckey's out and about. Okay, well, 10 years. Let me share about him. Corporal Stuckey began as an officer with APD in June of 2012. Steve served and began his career in patrol, but was selected to be a detective on the department's special enforcement team. In this role, Steve was part of the team responsible for combating street crimes such as narcotics sales and gang activity. Steve was then selected to be the department's first full-time community action team officer, partnering with county mental health resources and working with the unhoused population in our city. Steve's work and the partnerships he developed in this role have certainly contributed to the success of our team and CAT teams, which serve as a model for other law enforcement firms in the county. Indeed, they do. In 2023, Steve was promoted to the rank of corporal, and due to the promotion, rotated back to a patrol team. Steve currently serves as a field training officer, training newly hired officers within our department. He is also one of the department's firearm armorers. Steve is the department's undisputed king of music and movie trivia. I didn't know that. And has the ability to recall movie quotes from a wide variety of music outside of work. Steve is a father of 4 and a husband. Those are important roles and hobbies. He enjoys coaching football and spending time with his family in his spare time. This is a neat opportunity to just feature our employees for the holistic people they are. It's amazing the service our employees give to this community as well. I'm noticing Ayla and I noticed someone else, and I don't have a note for them. So if someone can assist me with that, that would be great, because we want to make sure we're recognizing Ayla and our other member of our staff. So while I'm reading our next 10-year award, perhaps someone can help me with that. Our next 10-year award is Nick DeBar. Nick, come on up here. You're here. Let's give this guy a round of applause, man. Wow. How are you? Nice, man. Congratulations to you on your 10-year anniversary with the city. You made it to 10 years. No, he's standing right here. This may come as a surprise to you that he made it 10 years, or, no, that since he rarely mentions it, but prior to coming to Atascadero, he was mostly in Minnesota. Why are you so red? That he was in Minnesota. See, the worst recognition is when you work for the city manager, because then you really get it. He was born and raised in the Twin Cities area before moving to California in the late 80s to get away from winter. He attended UC Davis and got a civil engineering degree, right? Prior to Atascadero, he spent many, many years practicing engineering in the private sector and with many municipalities and airport in Minnesota, so really well-rounded. In 2014, he headed back to the West Coast to thaw out and take on our Public Works Director position, and we're glad he did. Usually it's above freezing temperatures here, but maybe you're bringing those with you this week, right? Nick is proud of many programs and projects since becoming our Public Works Director, and you have a huge record of achievement, and our community's forever better for it, including the Downtown El Camino project, 7 years in the making, tenacity there, along with working on our standardizing public improvements and guidelines, and also making us easier to do business with as far as our relationship with contractors and vendors, which is really important because that's directly added to project success and certainty. You started right after F-14, so you're kind of the father of implementing F-14. That's pretty cool. And I think you've paved so many of our roads, and you and your team have done so well doing so. L-24 passed, as we know, 71% approval. And that's really a result of the trust you and your team have built paving our roads. Nick's humor, I believe, is contagious and appreciated. He's definitely one of those members of our executive team that can cheer me up on a tough day, and I enjoy that. He's well-liked and makes City Hall a much better place to work. Nick is married to his wife, Stacy, for 35 years and has 2 adult children, one of whom also works in engineering and construction. So, Nick, thank you for 10 great years, a decade. We appreciate you. All right, I think we're on to the big ones. Do we have 25 years? Kelly, come on up here. You're going to get to give a speech for 25 years. So you come on up here. I know you're back there. 25 years. Can you... Working somewhere for 25 years. That is absolutely incredible. What was it like 25 years ago? We won't get into that. Well, you are an amazing, amazing member of our team. You were hired by the city in 1999 as a public safety dispatcher when she was 12 years old. We're going with that. And after spending nearly 19 years in that role, she learned of the recruitment for the administrative assistant position in the fire department and got goosebumps knowing it was a perfect fit. And indeed it was, and we're so glad she is in the fire department. She's the voice of the fire department, always providing excellent customer service. She's the one who schedules community chipping, fire inspections, department meetings, and events. She fields all of the weed abatement calls and questions. Some are good, some, I know. Kelly really does provide support for every member and in every area of the department. She's a member of our ADAC team, which is our Employee Development Advisory Committee, helping really build our culture, our parties, our recognitions, and simply making this a great place to work. Kelly is still active in a response role, being called frequently by the Los Padres National Forest to assist with ordering critical resources and personnel during large wildland fires. Her expanded dispatch assignments ensures she gets to spend many weekends at Vandenberg Space Force Base. Kelly lives in Atascadero and has been married to her husband, Brian, for more than 21 years. They raised 2 daughters, Caitlin, currently in the nursing program at Grand Canyon University, and Taylor, an 8th grader at Atascadero Middle School. Kelly and Brian enjoy spending time with friends, traveling, and rooting for the 49ers during football season. Committing 25 years of your professional life is a moment worth us just pausing and recognizing and giving you sincere thank you. Thank you. Really? All right, 25 years, you get a speech. That's incredible. And you serve so well. And she makes great coffee on our 3rd floor. When our pot's not working, I steal hers. And it's terrific. Right, Nick? All right, 25 years. That's awesome. Fire Chief Casey Bryson, come on up here. Woo. Man, my best memory of Casey, there's a lot of them. One I'll share. I remember when I first got here, and I was assistant city manager, and I looked about like the guy on the top left too. And I'm touring different facilities, and I come into the fire station, and I look at him, and I said, well, what do you do? He goes, I'm Casey. I'm the fire captain. I look at that face. I go, you're a fire captain? How old are you? And he says, 27. And he looks at me and he goes, how old are you? And I went, 28. And he goes, well, you're the assistant city manager. And I went, okay, let's be friends. Chief Casey Bryson has committed his entire career to the city of Atascadero, and we are a much better city because of his service. The chief began his career in fire service with us as a cadet firefighter through the Atascadero High School Work Experience Program. I'm certainly hoping we get something like that going again. In the early 90s, in 1994, when he was 5, he became a seasonal reserve firefighter and then was promoted to a full-time firefighter in 1999. Thereafter, he quickly was promoted, this should be no surprise to us, to fire engineer and then to fire captain in 2004. He also became a licensed paramedic. Casey was well-liked, respected, and enjoyed success, tremendous success as a fire captain. During that time, he was president of the Atascadero Firefighters Association, president of the San Luis Obispo Training Officers Association, the area director for the Southern California Training Officers Association, a member of the U.S. Forestry Incident Management Team, a founding member of the North County Technical Rescue Team, the department lead for the Insurance Services Organization, the ISO, which has a huge impact on rating insurance for our private sector businesses. He was the department training officer for 6 years and the city's emergency operations manager. So I think as a result of those accomplishments and his leadership and just his calm demeanor, he earned the respect of the staff and community for sure, and was promoted to fire chief in 2017, where he currently serves managing our fire department. Since he was promoted to fire chief, Casey's continued to stack him up with accomplishments, including leading the department through 3 strategic plans, multiple ISO certifications. We've successfully reviewed several FEMA, Fire Safe Council, and OTS grants. He's initiated the Zone Haven Evacuation Program, which I know we're all very proud of, which is now a model for so many more places. He's replaced several of our apparatus, including a Type 3 engine, a rescue, and our ambulance. He's updated all department policies and procedures. He has been closely involved in the planning efforts for our new Fire Station 1 and 2. And I tried to get him to do another 10 years in the new station, but it's looking a little tough. I can talk people in a lot, but I think that's a hard one for you, 10 years. Most important, Casey has hired talented, service-oriented, and ethical people. That's what I'm proudest of. And he's prepared our community well for multi-hazard responses. He has continued to build an amazing fire department culture that is the envy of many. And you are certainly a trusted advisor and friend to me, for sure. When Chief Bryson is away from work, he enjoys being with his wife of nearly 25 years, Heidi. I'm so glad to see her here. And their 3 children, Mackenzie attending Masters College and engaged to be married this spring, Morgan attending Cuesta College, and Dean, a senior at AHS, finishing his soccer season. He can also be found pedaling his mountain bike, camping in the backcountry, or after work, enjoying a nice cold beverage at Tent City Brewery. Not many people can say they've worked at a place for 25 years, but I'm sure glad Casey can, because we are far better because of him. Congratulations.
So my family's here tonight, my wife Heidi, my son Dean, and my daughter Morgan. I'm told my other daughter is watching, but she's in class down at Masters, so maybe we'll see. Thank you very much. I appreciate the kind words. That was a lot that you read, and I don't know if all of it's true or not. It's been a privilege to work for the city for this long, and what I can say is that you have some accomplishments to get to this level, but then once you're here, it's the people you have that get you all that done. So Kelly, for sure, she's here. I've got most of my staff here. It's amazing you guys are here, and all those things are because of them to get it done. So thank you.
And with that, we honor our employees. Thank you, council, for providing such an amazing place to work that allows us to have tenure. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis, and thank all of you who have served for the city for a long time, and all of you currently serving for the city. Everything we get done is because we have a good staff, so we really appreciate you. Okay, with that, we will move on to the consent calendar. The consent calendar consists of items that are considered routine and non-controversial by city staff, and will be acted upon by a single action of the city council unless requested by an individual council member for separate consideration. We will allow public comment on any consent calendar item. So I will now open the public comment period for a consent calendar item. If anybody would like to discuss any item A through 6, A1 through A6. Okay, seeing no one approach, I will bring it back to council and ask if there are any council members wish to ask any questions of staff about a consent item or pull it for further discussion. No, seeing none, I will ask for a motion.
Move approval of the consent calendar.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Funk and a second by Councilmember Peak. We'll call the roll, please.
Councilmember Funk,
Yes.
Councilmember Peak,
Yes.
Councilmember Newsom,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Daris,
Yes.
Mayor Burbo.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, thank you. We will now proceed to updates from the city manager.
Thank you, Mayor and members of council. I have several. First, I want to give a quick update on some of our events, the father-daughter dance and the mother-son dance. Were amazing. All 3 dances were sold out between this past weekend and the weekend prior. Thank you to everyone involved, from Jimmy D Photography to Medina Light Show Designs, the team, our team, for all of their decorating and redecorating. We learned a lesson this year. The mother-son dance was before the father-daughter dance. And so the decorations weren't able to be reused, if you know what I mean. But I think the mother or father-daughter dance, if it's before it, the mother-son, the sons can help us clean up, if you know what I mean. So we learned that this year, but everybody had a fabulous time. And we're going to add a night to the mother-son dance next year. So we'll actually have 4 nights. And my real appreciation to our recreation team for the hard work they do, in particular, Ashley and Patty for this work. We continue to clean our creek. I know we had a few council members there as we moved to Earthshine 2025 this past Saturday. We had over 80 volunteers working to pick up 100 bags of litter or 3,000 pounds of trash. So really appreciate the community coming out and partnering. I know Echo worked to get some of their volunteers there as well. Thank you for all that work, to Earthshine for coordinating that, and to council for being there to help. The Charles Paddock Zoo, and this was important, as you've heard, the monarch butterfly population is really struggling this year in California. And so I'm pleased that our zoo continues to focus on its conservation efforts, hosting a milkweed for monarchs on Saturday. So we had record attendance, and we're very appreciative of the Xerces Society as they gave away their milkweed to guests interested in planting a butterfly garden. We're also in design of a large butterfly garden in the community. You'll be seeing information about that soon. But this is really important as our butterfly population has had a difficult time. Other organizations that participated include California Native Plant Society, Moral Coast Audubon, and One Cool Earth, and our amazing master gardeners who continue to do so much at our zoo. And we look forward to more events like this as we retain our accreditation, and we'll focus our conservation efforts on monarch butterflies and the California condor, of course. This Friday, if you need something to do, we have the perfect opportunity. See, this is good. There are many people, some people, trying Valentine's Day comes up and they just don't know what to do. Well, the city manager has a great tip for you. You come down to the Sweetheart Stroll Sip and Shop. Your partner will love it. You'll enjoy phenomenal wine, beer, coffee, and other treats from 15 plus businesses in downtown. This Valentine's Day, it's on Valentine's Day, takes all the pressure off you. Just come on downtown, 5:30 to 8. It'll be a great time, and tickets are available until noon. So that's the thing. Don't miss it. Until noon on Friday for $25. But if you do, they're $30 at the event. So great evening. These are huge. The Downtown Sweetheart Stroll. Coffee with a Cop. This is a program we'll be reintroducing. This is going to be great. I appreciate our police department reaching out on Monday, February 17th from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Amsterdam Coffee House will be providing a relaxed environment for you to come and connect with the cop. Bring your families to share a hot cup of coffee and conversation and learn everything about our police department and our people. It's always important to connect with people at a person level as we see that we're all just trying to do the right thing. And I really appreciate this opportunity for our officers to connect at a human level. I think it'll be great. Next, we have stormwater preparation and resources. If you haven't noticed, the storm is coming. So it will be here tomorrow. We'll have significant winds between 40 to 60 miles an hour and several inches of rain on Thursday. So please be prepared. Prepare your property for this. The staff is preparing. We're staffed up, and we'll be ready to protect public infrastructure and public right-of-way. But make sure you're preparing your home, covering your furniture, making sure things aren't going to blow away. If you need sand, sand is available free of charge at Fire Station Number 1, located at 6005 Lewis Avenue, and at the City Yard at 8005 Garbata Road. Please bring your own shovel and sandbags, but we have the sand, and prepare now. Our El Camino project construction update for this week. We are just really moving along here. The Mutual Water Company is doing repairs on the west side of El Camino in front of La Plaza. That was today, actually. Southbound El Camino was detoured to Traffic Way, and I'm hopeful that that work was done successfully. No parking areas were marked. We had a detour map. We had an article in the paper trying to convey this information. K-rail barricades, you may have noticed, it's kind of like a reveal that as we can safely, we're trying to pull the K-rails so our community can see what's happening and see the progress, and it's getting exciting. K-rail barricades will be removed south of West Mall, and they'll be relocated up north. A lot of the activity now is north of Traffic Way between Virginia Plaza and Rosario. Work continues in the median on El Camino between Colony Cinemas, Huckleberries, and Traffic Way. This includes concrete work on the curbs, planters, and installation of plants and pavers. So some of the trees have been put in, if you saw the big box trees, which tells you we're really getting there. And I know this has been a long project. We're so grateful for the community's patience, but you can see it coming. Trenching continues in the north side sidewalk on Entrada Avenue, as well as the alley off Entrada. This was in preparation for underground PG&E electrical work. No parking areas will be marked. Entrada will remain open to pedestrians and vehicles. And that was important for the electrical to power the lighting. And so that's where we had to tie in. Work continues in the median in El Camino between Traffic Way and Rosario, milling, pavement, concrete work, et cetera. Concrete curb and planter work continue on El Camino and Rosario. There will still be narrow traffic lanes and delays in some places, but we always have access to business and driveways open. So please be mindful, slow down, and stay alert. And then we have a couple new friends at our zoo. As you can see, let's see our next slide. 3 young Mexican spider monkeys have arrived at our zoo from another AZA accredited zoo to join poor Izzy. Poor Izzy's been by himself for a while, and now he has friends. So we're glad that, man, toucans, new spider monkeys, they're under a year old, and Izzy is 45. So this is really something you got to see. We're making Izzy young again. Mexican spider monkeys are an endangered species found in parts of Mexico and Central America, threatened by loss of habitat and being hunted, unfortunately. They're found in the Mesoamerica biodiversity hotspot, and High Arbor is the highest forest of Central America. So do please see Izzy. He'll look a little tired, I'm sure, and his new baby brother. All right, and that's for more information. Go to visit atascadero.com or atascadero.org for information. Thank you, Mayor and Council. There was lots to report.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Does any member of the council have a question for the city manager? Okay, if not, we'll proceed to our next item, which is community forum. Community forum is reserved for persons wanting to address the city council on any matter not on the agenda and over which the council has jurisdiction. The Brown Act prohibits the council from discussing matters not on the agenda, but the council may, at its discretion, ask staff to contact a speaker regarding an issue raised during the community forum, or council may ask staff a brief question. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes, and please state your name for the record. Anybody like to approach and speak to council during community forum?
Good evening, Mayor, council members, city staff, and community. My name is Mary Verdin. I'm the CEO and president of Verdin Marketing, and it's my pleasure to be here tonight to present this really cool Gold Marcom Award to the city. Marcom is an international awards competition for marketing and advertising, and we were recognized with this last year for the campaign that we created with the Visit Atascadero team called All in Atascadero. We're big believers in Atascadero and so proud to be part of your success. Since we began working with your tourism board in 2015, this is the 12th time that we've been recognized with an industry award, which is a testament to the powerful, authentic storytelling that showcases Atascadero as the simply genuine destination that it is. Over the years, we've developed 10 strategic marketing campaigns together. In addition to the All in Atascadero campaign, there's been California as It Used to Be, the Burgers and Brews Trail, and our newest campaign, Your Favorite Neighbor. These campaigns have helped highlight what makes Atascadero so special. During the challenges of COVID, we stood together, redirecting efforts to a plan that highlighted Atascadero's beautiful open spaces, creating an outdoor recovery series, and helping bring visitors back safely. We also collaborated with Visit SlowCal and the Central Coast Tourism Council to bring journalists and influencers here, leveraging partnerships to ensure Atascadero's warm and welcoming spirit was shared far and wide. And the results speak for themselves. TOT has much more than doubled, increasing by 133% in the past 10 years. We're honored to be part of this journey with our favorite neighbor, Atascadero, and hope to continue building on this success together. Thank you for your partnership, your vision, and your trust. Congratulations on another well-earned achievement. Thank you.
Thank you. And let's say, do we want to tell you what, Terry, I know you had something to do with this. I would like, we'll stay up here, but Jim, you, Terry, and Mary, if you'd stand right here and take possession of the award, that would be great. And did somebody out there take a picture? Yeah. Yeah, well, I'll stand up. You guys stand over here a little bit. And then make sure we get Mark in there. Yeah, we'll stagger. Yeah, we'll stagger. You guys stagger, we'll stagger. Okay, here we go. I know. I was gonna say, when Terry becomes a, thank you very much for. When Terry's not taking the picture, we don't know what to do. All right. Thank you very much again for that. And I think it's a great recognition of Atascadero and how our efforts led by, on our side by Terry Banish are successful and have been progressively succeeding more and more. So thank you again. All right, our next speaker.
Hi, good evening, Council and Mayor Bobo. Wendy Lewis with El Camino Homeless Organization. I'm here for a couple of reasons. One is to share appreciation and thank you to the city and to Earthshine for the event that was held Saturday. It was wonderful to see so many community members, to see Council Member Funk, Mayor Bobo was out there, but also a highlight was how many residents jumped in from Echo and other clients that we serve kind of came together, and it was neat to see the entire community coming together to make that important environmental impact to our downtown corridor and the riverbed and the creek. So that was just wonderful to see. Also have an update that we held a community neighborhood meeting in response to kind of our growing our organization and expanding and adding the family wing in Atascadero. We held it last month, and we're also holding a second version. So would love council to know that date and see if you're able to make it. We'd love for anybody to join it. It's going to be on March 13th from 6:30 to 7:30 at Echo in our dining room. And so please, I'll bring postcards to the council like I did last card once they're printed to make sure you get them to certain constituents that have feedback or have concerns. Echo wants to hear that and just be as good of a neighbor as possible. The next update is I often come and kind of update you on numbers of people getting housed through our programs. And we recently had a very successful person, and I encourage people to go on our social media channels or on our website, echoshelter.org. Her name is Kelly, and she gives us her permission to share her story, but she had been living in the creek bed for many, many years. And once she found the stability of Echo Atascadero, was entered into the program, had that place to stay to help navigate what steps she needed to take, she was able to get employment. And now she, last week, got the keys to her permanent housing. You'll see her smile and holding the keys up. And it was really neat. She actually got paired up to a past Echo success story that got housed 4 years ago and continues to be housed. So it's neat that they get to have that journey together and kind of can always lean back on Echo if they need to. And then the numbers. So I always like to highlight where we're at. And we just finished 2025 with a record year. And I am just continue to be amazed at the resources we're able to provide and help people as they navigate the journey of from not having housing into housing. And so far this year, we have helped 7 individuals or families with homeless prevention. And that is money that we receive in order to keep someone from experiencing homelessness. And another update there, we were successful with the grant opportunity, and we now have a fund of our own that we administer locally through the county. So it'll help streamline that process. And then we have another 36 of our residents or our outreach clients that were housed so far this year. So we're off to record numbers at 43. So thank you so much. Just really, it takes all of us to make this possible.
Great. Thank you. I would add, there was about 70 people out there for the creek cleanup, a very good showing and indicative of the volunteer spirit in Atascadero. Mr. Oslin.
Good evening, Jeff Oslin. I'm representing a few businesses tonight that I consult with on waste management. I did have a conversation with Mr. Lewis today. He may want to clarify some things when I'm done. But the business community has gotten a letter stating that they're going to be paying $33.91 per dumpster if the garbage truck cannot roll up and pick it up and dump it. If you look around town, we've had a lock dumpsters. We have to cage them. And now to avoid fees, we have to roll them out. This apparently has been in the contract and never enforced. And of course, Waste Management is going to enforce it. And I feel bad for the businesses because they're always getting more of a burden. We've already taken green waste away for free. We have to pay for that. A few years back, if council remembers, for those of you that were on there, when we went to locking dumpsters because we had too many people going through and illegally dumping, the business community once again had to pay a fee. So if you're already paying a fee to get into your dumpster, and now you have to pay a fee to have your dumpster stabbed, you're kind of doubling it. And that new fee on an average person, an average business is about 39% if you add that in. The other problem with this, and it's not so much against the fee and having to do it, is if you have multiple dumpsters and you set out for your green waste first, or you set out for your recycling first, and your trash truck shows up first, and now they have to get out of the vehicle to switch dumpsters, you're being unfairly penalized. And I'm hoping that we can come to a better compromise on this and a better clarification through waste management. At least they were proactive this go around and not just jumping fees, but I think it's a shame that we're going to this with the business community. On a couple other notes, I was at our father-daughter dance for the third time. Fantastic event. Saw Terry there. It's incredible. That's why it sells out. I was down there 2 hours after tickets went on sale, and I was number ticket 99 and 100. So they go quick. You can't waste time on that at all. So anyways, and by the way, for those of you that were wondering where I was at 2 conferences and something with my child. So you missed me for 3 weeks, but I'm duly back. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Oslin. Anybody else wanting to speak at community forum? Okay. And since you have spoken to Mr. Lewis, staff is aware of the issue and can look into that. Okay, with that, we will close community forum and come back to the council. We proceed to the next agenda item, which is item B1, a public hearing on the Atascadero Tourism and Business Improvement District change to the ordinance governing that body. All right, we will turn this over to Community Services and Promotion Director Terry Banish. But before I do, I want to see, has any member of the council had any ex parte communications on this matter? Okay, all right, none here. All right, thank you, Ms. Banish.
All righty. Thank you, Mayor Bourbeau and council. So tonight we're going to take a quick deep dive into the lodging owner nomination process and composition of the advisory board for the Atascadero Tourism Business Improvement District, what I'll refer to as the app bid. With the app bid, a real quick recap for everyone. The city council appoints the app bid advisory board members to serve at the pleasure of the council. And then the advisory board is also made up of lodging owners or employees or other representatives that hold written consent from the lodging businesses within the app bid area. And they are assessed 2.5% of the rent charged by the business owner per occupied room for transient occupancies that is used for marketing efforts to promote our destination. With that, we've had a discussion with the app bid board notifying lodging owners, basically, hang on 1 second, sorry. The app bid advisory board sends out a notification to the lodging owners meeting in February to be held sometime in March or April to vote on the 2-year board term expiring at the end of June and vote for the new term beginning July 1st. The voting mechanism for this is a secret ballot vote. However, the language regarding who gets to vote is just a little hazy. It states that all app bid lodging business members in attendance at the meeting will be eligible to vote. So to the point of weighted voting, we talked to the app bid board about this and in some depth in the January meeting on ways to determine the variety of calculations, but it's very complicated to do calculations. So what the app bid advisory board determined was to make sure that there's a representative that always has a seat on the board that is a vacation rental, short-term rental, or a B&B. And then the other 4 are the hoteliers, and those hoteliers make up a commercial zone with 25 rooms or more. And then that way you have 4 hoteliers and you have 1 of the vacation rental, short-term rental, or a bed and breakfast. So that makes up for the 5 members on the board. Okay, and with that, what we would like to do is following the public hearing, staff recommends that the council introduce the proposed ordinance making a change to section 3-16.07.
that it? Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
With that, I want to see if any members of the council have questions of staff on this item. Yes, Councilmember Funk?
Yes, and thank you for bringing this forward. A question, I understand that the intent is with separate seats for the hoteliers and the Airbnbs and B&Bs, that the lodging owners in each category would get to vote for their representatives of their category. Is that correct?
So that is not correct. They can vote for their whatever member they want to have serve, as long as one is a vacation rental, bed and breakfast, or a short-term rental, and the other four are hoteliers. So when you have the term come up, this term that's coming up now, one is a bed and breakfast, short-term rental, or vacation rental, and the other one's a hotelier. So as long as the popular vote comes out where that seat that's filled is a representative of the short-term rental, that is okay to do.
Okay, and can you show me where that is in the language of the ordinance?
So in the language of the ordinance,
Because I was not finding that process anywhere in the.
yeah, it's not defined like that in there. The only place where it's defined, one second here. Where we make a change on the draft ordinance under A, what we're defining is that the At-Bed Advisory Board will be comprised of the 5 members, with 4 members representing lodging businesses with 25 rooms or more in a commercial zone, and 1 member representing vacation rental lodging businesses that are not hotels as defined in Chapter 9 of the code. So those are your vacation rental, your B&B, and your short-term rental. So if we have 2 seats up this next term, one of those seats is the short-term rental, vacation rental, that has to be filled by a vacation rental, short-term rental person. And the other one gets filled by a hotelier.
Right, and the
Right.
question is, how does the ATBID Advisory Board
Mhm.
and its and the people who and the lodging owners who select for that, how do they select that? And is that, I mean, I was looking for that piece of the process. How do they make their selection that then comes to the council? And I was wondering, would it be helpful to have additional language in the ordinance that clarifies that point? I don't know if the city attorney wants to weigh in on that.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. With Ms. Banish's assistance, we tried to come up with a process that didn't involve a lot of calculations. So one of the things that we had talked about initially was weighted voting based on the amount of TOT or ATBID. That becomes very complicated. And so what we were trying to do is we were trying to honor the concerns that there be representation on the board. And the easiest way to do that is have a simple qualification for that person. So the process has not changed on how the hoteliers and short-term vacation rental people come to that conclusion. It just sets the restrictions on what the member who is being elected or being brought forth to council can be. So if subsection D of the current ordinance says that the ATBID advisory board will be appointed at the discretion of the city council, that's not changing. But the process is that each February, the advisory board gets a letter sent out to the lodging business owners announcing that there are some vacant seats. Then the board nominations will go through that process, and it's going to either be someone from the hotels, one of the 4 seats, or the short-term vacation rental seat. And so they will go through that process. By restricting the voting for the 4 seats to just hoteliers, then we have to get into having an election there. It's easier for them to bring forth their proposal. And if the hoteliers can work with the short-term vacation rental people and put forth a nominee for the position that's to represent the short-term vacation rentals, then the council can take a look at that position. But that's how it was formulated in the ordinance.
I'd like us to discuss that more because I mean, it concerns me. I had the exact same questions that Councilmember Funk did. So maybe if we want to hold off for, we'll discuss that more after we hear from the public, which I assume will include members of the hotelier and bed and breakfast community. Does any other member of the council have any other question before we go to the public? Okay, what I'd like to do is go to the public and hear from particularly any member of the AtBid if they want to comment on this. Do we have any members here who are part of this process? Okay, I'm a little surprised, but very good. Any other member of the public wishing to speak on this item?
Just like one clarification, Jeff Oslin, in the reading of it, can one entity basically campaign and everybody gets the vote for whoever they want? Or is it limited that if you're part of the Airbnb, you appoint one person, and if you're part of the hotels, you appoint one person, so you're not getting one entity owning the T-bid?
Okay, thank you. Any other member of the public wishing to comment? Okay, in that case, I will bring it back to council for discussion. Councilmember Funks, you have a comment, and then I certainly have a comment. We'll see what other members say.
Yeah, I'm still confused on this point because I don't see in the language of the ordinance how the voting occurs at the ATBID. Is it not necessary for us to have that specified in the ordinance, how the ATBID makes that decision as long as they bring forward recommendations to the council? Is that what you're telling me?
Well, I think the ATBID can certainly set its internal bylaws as to how it's going to send those nominations forward. What we're doing here is the council's giving direction to the ATBID board that this is going to be the composition of the board. And we have left it in the current language to the ATBID board on how they're going to process that. We can get into designating how they must do their voting process. But we, in looking at it, found that that was going to be complicated in setting up what the voting parameters were, how the votes were going to be weighted, and so on. So this is the scheme that I understood that was being discussed is guaranteed seats for one person from the vacation rentals, guaranteed seats for 4 people from the hoteliers.
I shared some different thoughts with a couple of you, so that may be where there's some, I think there's a valid consideration if the council wanted to do that and give us direction. We could certainly bring this back. In the administration of this, the subset of people and only one property can be a seat. So a property can't have 4 seats, to answer your question. But I believe there are only 6 or 7 properties eligible for the 4 seats. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Ms. Ringiel, something like that. So that's a very small population that could vote for those. And then by de facto, everyone else would have a different
Right.
process for the 1 seat. If that's something of interest to the council, we could certainly talk about that and bring something else back for you. But I think it's worth a discussion with you. I think what the city attorney and Terry were trying to do after I had spoke with them was keep this really efficient and pure as it is, that everybody can vote for everybody, but the seats are structured as they are. So I think it warrants further discussion by the council for sure.
Well, my thought was, I think like Councilmember Funk, I found it confusing that it didn't explain it anywhere in the ordinance how the voting would occur. My thought would have been that the, Airbnb short-term rental folks would vote, they would vote for the one representative in that category, and that the hoteliers would vote for the 4 seats that fall into that category. And to me, that's fairly simple and straightforward, and there's nothing complicated about counting those votes. However, I would acknowledge what the city attorney did, which is, as a city council, we're saying, hey, we want this board, we want 4 of these and 1 of those, and it's up to you, the affected parties, how you make that determination. And
Right.
based on that logic, I can understand and accept that, even though my personal thought process would have been, no, have these people vote on this one and these people vote on these 4. So I don't know what I'm going to kind of poll the rest of the council, see what you think, how deep we want to get into this.
Yeah, I think it would be helpful for us not to move forward an ordinance that is confusing. That it would be useful to spell out in some place whether we either specify the process or specify that the ATBID advisory board shall specify that process. But to be silent on that point is just to me a head scratcher. The one potential that I would be uncomfortable with much as I love and respect the personnel involved, is I think it would be inappropriate for the advisory board itself to make the choice of the members in each category from among the nominees presented by the community of lodging owners as a whole. Because in that situation, a board that has only one member from a particular category would be voting on whether, on who the member should be from that category. And I think that's a problem. Just not in terms of its outcome, but in terms of the process and the fairness to everyone involved. So I would be more comfortable with the process, or at least the city exploring a process where the non-hotel lodging owners got a chance to vote for their person on the ATBID advisory body, and with the hoteliers want to vote for their one as opposed to having it for their representatives, as opposed to having it open to the group as a whole. That would also, I think, be appropriate. It would be helpful to hear from the folks on the advisory body or in one or both categories about what their intent was in doing it, but that's.
Right. It appears they're not here this evening.
Yeah.
I want to hear from the other council members what your thoughts are on this matter. Councilmember Newsom?
How many people actually apply for this board?
It ranges. It could be one person, it could be two, it could be five, but we've never had a lot apply. But we're becoming more popular too and being on the board. So that's another thing, but we've never had a major, kind of a lot of folks come out to apply.
And then what is the ratio of the vacation rentals and the hotels?
So I'll defer to Jerry on that one.
I believe we have 9 hotels and probably in the range of 130 to 150 short-term rentals.
Okay, thank you.
And I think that, comes to the point of if they wanted to, the 130 short-term rentals could easily outvote the 9 hotels if you
Yes.
didn't have this
Yeah.
apportioned on a 4-to-1 basis, which is in keeping with the amount of transient occupancy tax generated by the larger hotels versus the smaller ones. So I think it's important to end up with this 4-to-1 ratio of representations. It's a question of how we do it, whether we just want to leave it to the ATBID and maybe put some language in the ordinance that says, this will be the representation. It's up to the ATBID to recommend the representatives to the council for ratification.
Yeah, and there's a couple ways that I can see that happening. You can specify, as Councilmember Funk mentioned, that only the hoteliers can vote for the hotel seats and only the short-term rental can vote for that seat. That's one way of doing it. But that still begs the question of, okay, if that is the case, how does that election take place? Is that something that the council wants to get involved in? Because what I tried to do in revising the ordinance is there was a level of granularity about the procedures to be used in having that nomination forwarded to the council. It talked about having a noticed meeting, a nomination process. There were an election by secret written ballot received, mailed, or cast at that meeting. There was proxies involved if someone couldn't attend. That struck me as unduly complicated to get to the end result, which is a 4-and-1. But there is a middle ground in there. If council gives direction to focus more directly on allowing the hoteliers to vote for the hotel seats and the short-term rentals to vote for their seat, I can come up with something like that. But there's 130 short-term rentals. There's going to have to be some give on that. And I'd recommend that be reserved to the ATBID board to figure out how they want to conduct whatever election is going to come forward, because you ultimately have the final say.
Understand, but on the other hand, we probably don't want to get too deeply involved in, what size paper is used for a ballot, that kind of thing. I'm going to finish up here with Councilmember Peak and Mayor Pro Tem Daris.
Yes, there's like 130 vacation rentals, and how many of them know each other? Can make like an actual informed vote on who's going to represent them. Sort of my opinion that if you're going to be on a board with somebody, you should have some say in who's going to be on the board with you. I also don't think, I'm kind of curious about, the number that vacation rentals that would apply for it. Who's be the tiebreaker if there's only two of them? There's so many different things going into this that I'm just not sure about the short term, being that I used to own short-term rental in Atascadero, that we weren't really keyed in on. People that own them, a lot of them don't live here. They wouldn't really apply for it. So I'm wondering if it's going to be a non-issue mostly, or even if that they know each other, that how would they know that they're voting on someone ethical or, up to snuff?
I mean, those are fair questions, but I think that even further emphasizes the why we don't want to get too deeply into the election process, that we simply state from the council's perspective, we'd like to see 4 hotelier representatives, 1 short-term rental representative, and they need to have an election process that brings that recommendation forward to the council. I want to see if Mayor Pro Tem Darius has a comment.
No, I agree with that. And I think what the city attorney, the way he described it with having the hoteliers vote for their member there and the others vote for theirs, I think to keep it as simple but effective, I think I'm comfortable with that.
Right. And that way we would just perhaps, amend the language to specify that there's, the hoteliers would elect their representative, the short-term owners would elect their representative and present it to the council. And how they do that, we don't want to dive too deeply into that. Now, is that, I don't know if that looks, so if that, based on that guidance, can you see how that fits into the language here and or suggest amended language? Could we let you do that while we push this item and come back to this item? Come back to it tonight, come back to it.
I can certainly give that a shot. My preference generally in this situation is to get direction from council to bring it back at a subsequent meeting, perhaps the next meeting, continue the public hearing so that we don't have to renotice it. I find that at least my best legal drafting is not done during a council meeting, but outside the council meeting. But I also want to have an opportunity to maybe talk with the hoteliers and AT-BID people as to whether or not there are any additional tweaks to the language that might be appropriate in that situation.
Okay, the only thing I want to check with the Ms. Banish is time of the essence here, because I see we're talking in here about February.
Yeah, if we bring it back February 25th, that will work.
Yeah, we'd want to bring it right back. And
Okay.
I think if we can do that, I think we've heard you. I do want to make a point really quick, though, just for people who may not understand how these work. Just in the sheer numbers, we've talked about 130 something people having 1 seat and 9 people having 4 seats. An assessment, because the board should be representative of the amount you're assessed as opposed to the number of individual units. Does that make sense? So the 9 units that have the 4 seats pay by far the vast amount of TOT. And that's the number on an assessment district. That's what's important, is what portion of the assessment you pay as opposed to how many individual payers there are. I just wanted to make that clear, which is why we're looking at this structure. But you've definitely given us enough direction to come right back. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you. With that, we will, what's the word here? We're gonna,
So
public hearing?
Yeah, the direction would be for staff to bring this back for first reading at the February 25th meeting and continue the public hearing to that date.
Okay, continue the public hearing. So that's what we're doing. And you guys will reach out and then come back to us next council meeting with revised language. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. With that, we will move on to item C1, the big one, award of a design build contract for public safety facilities project. I believe that Mr. Lewis and or City Clerk, Deputy City Manager Laura Christensen will be taking lead on this.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. Let's get it 1 second to come up. I know we've been talking about this for quite a while, and you had a presentation at your workshop in early 2024 about the design. Thank you. About the design build process, where we were at, why we had chose that. So I won't belabor the point, but I will talk about it just a little bit to educate those who don't know too much about it and why we are here today. Super exciting. I know we've been talking about this since prior to Measure D20 and putting Measure D20 on the ballot. Part of placing Measure D20 on the ballot was because we needed to find some funding solutions to addressing some of the deficiencies we have in our public safety facilities, and specifically Fire Station number 1. And with that, let's just jump in. So again, for background, Fire Station number 1 has been deficient administratively, operationally, structurally to really meet the current and future public safety needs. There were temporary building improvements that were identified and completed back in the late 1990s and 2012 with the intention that as funding became available, resources would go towards fixing or building a new fire station. This fire station was built in the early 1950s. So we're talking about a very old fire station. Part of some of the improvements required administration to move out of Fire Station 1 and move here to City Hall in order to accommodate the operations personnel there. And so that's made fire station operations a little more disjointed, where admin isn't with operations personnel. It's also the apparatus bays don't meet current safety standards. And so that needs to be addressed as well. There's that's not large enough to accommodate our current operation personnel or any future operation personnel. So there was a lot that we needed to look at and address with Fire Station number 1. And then same with Fire Station number 2, that was built in the 80s. And while that houses a smaller crew, it is also still not large enough for current crew or any growth that would be anticipated there, and being built in the 80s. It also doesn't meet current building codes. And so, and then same with police station, the police department, that also was not a building that was built for police headquarters. That was built in the 60s and was a department store. And then in the 90s, the city purchased that and refurbished it into a police department. So while it's a pretty large building at 12,500 square feet, it isn't operationally functional for what's been going on there. We've made some upgrades and some changes to accommodate a men's locker room and a women's locker room, but then that's made the locker rooms not really functional for all of the personnel that we have. Again, it's a building that was updated in the 90s, and so it needs some work. Policing's changed and modernized, and so we needed to address that as well. So we move forward to looking at the potential of placing Measure D20 on the ballot. We did that, and voters passed it, and that started providing funding to move forward with improvements for these facilities. So following the passage of Measure D20, a city team was brought together to start looking at the potential for what new modern facilities looked like. Originally, we started looking at the potential for a public safety center where we would move police and fire together. So combine Fire Station 1 and the police department. We looked at doing that at the Armory site. The city entered into negotiations with the state of California. Unfortunately, the city was not able to move forward with acquiring that site from the state. And so as such, we shifted our focus back to looking at what we could do with keeping these 3 facilities on site. And with that, we started moving forward into the design build procurement. So design build procurement is a little bit different than what we've ever done here before. We typically do design build, where the city contracts with an architect team, an engineering team. We do all of the designing with those teams. We do all the engineering. Once that's all done, we then put it out to bid for a contract. Then the contractor comes in and builds it for us. What design build gives us is the opportunity to work with all of those groups collaboratively. So what the city does is the city contracts with one entity, and then that entity goes out and hires the architect and the engineer teams. And so we all collaborate and work together for that one common goal of this successful project. Design build is a really, it's commonly used for projects like this. It's one of the fastest growing forms of project delivery here in the US, just because it helps the owner, so we'd be considered the owners. It helps you to contain your costs, right? Because we're not having to contract with all of these different ones. We contract with one who then does the contracting. It helps reduce the risk to the city, again, because we are contracting with one entity. It helps to speed up the delivery, again, because we are doing all of those things: design, engineering, construction. All of those things are all being done in collaboration together. And so they can occur consecutively, and so they can all be concurrently, not consecutively, versus having to be done consecutively when you go through design bid. It also helps, again, because the whole point of it is collaboration. And so you get a lot more collaboration into everything with the architect, with the engineers, with the contractors on from the very beginning. So it's a really, really, really integrative way to move forward with building. So here, this is a really quick, brief timeline. We started in May of 2023 with contracting for our owner's representative, which is Vanner Construction. So they provide us with, they started with, obviously, the city had not done design build before. So they helped guide us through, the design build process. They provide us with project management. They contract with the master architect. So they're the ones who help the city with concept design and putting together the bridging documents. Vanner also assisted the city in putting together all of the bid documents, supported us in working through award, and they will then also provide construction management services once we get under construction. Our master architect is also their 10 Over Studios, and they provided the space needs analysis for the city. So they met with PD and fire to find out where we were at, where we needed to be, and then they put together the bridging documents, which were then what we turned over in the RFQ process, and then into the in the RFP process to then get to where we are today. So in June 2024. We issued the RFQ, which essentially we went out and said, we are looking for a design build team, and we'd like you to submit to us and let us know your qualifications, who you are, what you bring to the team, who would you have on, what would your team makeup sort of look like, and then, what your experience is with this type of project. What your financial qualifications are, and what type of experience you have directly related to this. We actually received 7 SOQs from that. After a pretty rigorous review process, we narrowed that down to 3 teams. It was specialty construction and core design, F&H construction and LDA architects, and then Swinnerton and Shaw Kawasaki. So once we finished the RFQ for design build, then we issued, and we narrowed it down to those 3. We then issued them the RFP. The RFP is what had the bridging documents and said, this is what our goal is. This is what we're looking for. These are what the city would like to see at Fire Station 1 with an EOC at Fire Station 2 and at PD. So we provided that to all of them. And then the point of that process was for them to look at our bridging documents and then essentially come back and bring us what requirements based on our bridging documents, provide us how they could get to that. And then we review for best value, essentially what meets our requirements and is at the best value. As we went through that, that also included some confidential meetings with them where we could talk further about what we were looking for, where our priorities laid. Following some of the confidential meetings, one of the teams did excuse themselves. So then we were down to F&H and LDA and Swinnerton, Shaw Kawasaki. They both submitted proposals to us in November. We reviewed their proposals in November, and then following their review and which provided the best value, we chose FNH and LDA. Their proposal was great and met all of our minimum requirements, though it did significantly exceed the city's budget. So with that, we went into what's called value engineering negotiations. So from December until here we are today, we have been engaged in negotiations with the team. We've talked about what the city's budget looks like, what our highest priorities are, and we've looked at where we need basically the work focus the most. And so in all of that, and I won't go into it too much because they have way cooler slides and a lot more to talk about on that. But essentially, in part of that value engineering, we came to where we are at today with the really the designs that you saw in there, and then how what we could fit into with our budget. And speaking of budget, the construction costs came in at 31,072,318. And you can kind of see a rough breakdown for each one of the facilities. Moving forward, if the contract is awarded tonight, it's estimated that construction starts in January 2026 and full project closeout in August of 2027. So it seems like a long time, but with all of the designing that goes in and then actually constructing 3 facilities, doing rehab and some full-scale construction at 3 facilities, it's a good timeline. So essentially, I'll go through really quickly the project scope, but just next steps is following a contract award, we continue to negotiate and finalize design. So what we have is still a rough design of what it looks like. We still have to finalize actual building layout. We might need to switch some rooms around. We may need to talk more about elevations of buildings outside, really refine the exterior architect. We look further at site improvements, and then talk about the public utilities connections because that changes for the 3 buildings. And then also part of next steps is temporary facilities. Obviously, with everything staying on site where we're at, that means we need to find somewhere for our operational personnel and our equipment at both Fire Station 1 and Fire Station 2. We continue to negotiate or speak with the California Military Department for use of the Armory site for temporary facilities for Fire Station 1. So that is where we will operate Fire Station 1. Fire Station 2 can actually stay on site and move to another portion of the site. And so they'll have temporary facilities brought on site to Fire Station 2. And so there will be no change in operational response times for either of the stations. And then police can, because of the way that the renovations are being done, the majority of police operations can stay on site. And those that can't. We have some space here at City Hall where we can take on some of those that need to relocate because of some of the work that will be done on the roof and the HVAC. Speaking of scope, so Fire Station 1 is going to be a new fire station and a fully operational EOC. Currently, Fire Station 1 is about 5,400 square feet, and this is going to increase to 16,556 square feet. So there's going to be a large increase to not only operations, but also to having that fully functional emergency operations center. Currently, our emergency operations center, the police briefing room also doubles as our emergency operations center, which has worked for us, but it isn't, if we have a large scale emergency, really functional to have everyone in and out all the time at the police department. So this will give us not only a space for that, but also a space for additional training facilities, meeting rooms. It will provide that extra space that we don't currently have. Fire Station, sorry, I skipped ahead. Apologies. Fire Station 1 will modernize and expand to essentially get us through the next 50 plus years with the amount of growth and from the configuration of this station. It allows administration to move back and for operations to continue there to a larger scale. It'll be 2 stories instead of 1. And so all administration in the Emergency Operations Center will be on the bottom floor, and on the above floor will be the living quarters for fire personnel. Construction on Fire Station 2 is estimated to begin in April of 2026 with completion in July of 2027, though there may be some demo that happens long before then. At Fire Station 2, we looked at this. We need to achieve some of that equity with Fire Station 1. It needs to be operationally functional. It needs to be safe. It needs to meet code. And so really, when we were looking at the scope of this one, how do we get there with this station as well? And so this will increase in size by 850 square feet. That gives us, it rebuilds living quarters, gives us another room. It increases the size of their, the day room. It gives a standalone lobby and a public restroom, which is required by code. And then it adds decontamination rooms, spaces for turnout cleaning. It gives them a separate physical fitness area. Right now, their physical fitness area is in the apparatus bay or outside. So this gives them a dedicated area for that. And it really just goes back to making sure that where our fire personnel is safe and comfortable. Again, on this one, construction estimated to begin in February of 2026 and estimated to be completed in December of 2026. And then, let's see, whoops, sorry, one too many. And then police too close. Police headquarters. This really, we looked at what could we do to modernize and maximize the operational efficiencies of PD. And so really, we needed to upgrade and expand dispatch. Dispatch is not made for the amount of dispatchers we have. That was one of the fundings through D20 was to increase PD personnel, especially PD dispatch. In order to do that, we need to have the space for them. We don't have that in the police department now. And so part of this was to look at that. And so a detached dispatch facility is going to be built on site. So while it's detached, it isn't very far away. It's about 30 feet or so. So it's detached, but not, it's still very close. There's still a walkway that runs between. And so this gives them their own dedicated space, but still keeps them there at the police department. We're going to refresh the interior finishes. We're going to do some upgrades to the break room. And then we are also going to upgrade the locker rooms, both the men locker room and the women locker room. And the women's locker room is actually going to move from where it is now over into an area where it allows us to, right now we have an old jail, so that we can kind of blow up that jail area and then utilize this severely underutilized space. So it will give more space again, and with moving dispatch out offsite, it gives us more space for additional offices, for more conference areas, meeting areas. And then there'll also be some parking area security upgrades with cameras, some fixes to the fencing, that type of stuff. And then, as I mentioned, some of the staff may move here to City Hall because there is some roof repair and rehab that needs to happen, and it's over one office section. So some of those employees may need to move out. And again, construction estimated January 2026, dispatch to be completed, estimated in November 2026. So then they'll have their new office space, and then full completion of PD in February of 2027. And then I'm actually going to turn over funding. Our Administrative Services Director Rangel offered to speak a little bit more in depth on funding for y'all. Thanks.
As Deputy City Manager Christensen said, Measure D20 did provide some funding for this project. So since the implementation of that and receipt of revenues, we have been tucking away $1.5 million per year. I think we put some extra away in there in between times to gather some information or some reserve funding for this project. So we have been putting those funds away in the building maintenance fund to pay for some of the soft costs and some of those things that you don't want to fund over a 30-year period. So staff is recommending that we do a bond funding for the majority of this project in the amount of about 29 million. So we will come to council for consideration at a later date for that type of funding. And then the Measure D20 would provide the funding to pay for the debt service on that bond issuance. And then all of the soft costs and those would be funded by the Measure D20 money we put aside, and then potentially a little bit more as we go forward. We also have applied for a couple of congressional district grants, and so we're waiting to hear on those. I believe that's in the range of about $2 million, and that would really help this budget as well.
And with that, I will ask our design team of LDA Architects and F&H Construction to please come up, and we'll put their presentation up, and they will go more into who they are and what they will be bringing forward if council awards the contract tonight.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. My name is Eric Wool. I am the president of LDA Partners. I'm also an architect, and I'd be serving as the architect of record for this project. And with me is Stephen Sibley of F&H Construction, president of F&H Construction, and Daniel Hoff, who'd be the design project manager for the project as well. And do we have our presentation to pop up on the screen?
He is getting it up in just
Gotcha.
1 second.
All right. All right, so as I mentioned before, my name is Eric. I'll be the architect of record with LDA Partners and F&H Construction. And I want to just kind of briefly talk about our team as we put it together, and maybe more importantly, your project. So one of the things about design build, as the deputy city manager mentioned, design build process is really about collaboration, not conflict. And so it's an integrated team to make sure that the project runs smoothly from design through construction to when we actually hand you the keys to the front door. And so that's one of the things that we've kind of built this team on. Get the next slide, please. As a testament to some of our design build projects, if this were to go forward tonight, this would be our 9th design build project with F&H Construction and LDA Partners as a team together. Several of these are actually on the Central Coast, including the San Luis Obispo County Animal Shelter, the San Luis Obispo County Probation Building, which is under construction now, and the Pismo Beach Public Safety Center as well, also under construction. So we have a local presence here, and a proven local presence. The next slide. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about how we got to where we are. As we kind of see on the screen here, we had several meetings with the city over the course of the procurement and the negotiation to really kind of dive down into what's important to the city. As every locality, we have different means that's important to them. And so we want to make sure that these facilities really respond to your specific needs. Some of the things that we heard, be high quality, state of the art. We don't need to build the Taj Mahal. We want simple forms, but we want it to have a good civic presence as well. Kind of reinforce the public trust is how we spend taxpayer dollars. The material should be durable and last a long time. And we want to establish a pleasant and modern public face. All these things are good civic pride and how to move forward. So one of the things you see on the screen here is some of the actual exercises that we did with members of the committee. Word association, understanding what the people and the community responds to as we move forward with your projects. So for fire station number 1, which is the next slide. One of the challenges we had with the existing site, is that it slopes considerably, approximately 10 to 12 feet, depending upon where you stand from one end of the site to the other. Why that's problematic is because that affects how vehicles, especially fire trucks that are very long and large, how they navigate throughout the site. It also impacts how pedestrians move around the site as well. So we had to reorient some of the features of the facility to get them to fit, and we can maximize the site. And by doing so, we can help reduce the cost and focus the funding on the facility itself. And instead of putting money into underground improvements or site work that no one really actually sees. So one of the solutions that we came up with was, as mentioned before, was to create a two-story facility, which is the residents would be on the second floor, and the administrative and the EOC and the apparatus bay would be on the first floor. We are facing the apparatus bay along Traffic Way. Again, this is to maximize the site and for ease of turning movements for large vehicles, and also to accommodate the grades of the existing site and pedestrian and path of travel for accessibility. If we have large slopes, it makes it very difficult for people who are disabled to navigate the site. So this is a prime consideration with how we've oriented the facility. We have two means of vehicle access to the facility, both on Traffic and Lewis. So in case there is some sort of incident on one of those streets, we still have access to the facility. And if we go to the next slide, we can kind of talk about the inside of it. All public access is behind, or all access is behind a secure public line. So there is privacy and security for the people who actually work there and live there. We have two main points of access to the apparatus bay. That's important because that really gets to the end goal of what we're trying to do here, which is kind of, I'm going to skip to the last kind of bullet point on here, which is to reduce response time. Everything that we can do to get the fire staff into the apparatus faster is going to increase our response time. So that's really a key focus of how we start to organize the building. We have multiple points of vehicle circulation, like I mentioned before. For staff comfort, each of the individual day rooms have VRF individual controls, so that if you are a firefighter and you are spending the night there, you're not necessarily going to freeze out in your dorm room as opposed to the next guy who might be, sweating bullets in the next room. So a lot of it has to do with some comfort as well, and staff comfort. For flexibility, all the restrooms are gender neutral. That way we don't have to have separate facilities for men and women. That helps reduce the overall square footage and again, saves cost. The next slide will kind of show you our initial design concepts and what it would look like. Kind of using some cues from downtown with a lot of the brick and trying to create a really nice civic presence. Again, the two-story component would be front on the corner and then single stories as it goes back down Traffic on the apparatus bay. So we're focusing some of the improvements along the frontage as the back of house. Maybe that's a little bit more less elegant, as we say. So maybe just more so stucco, not so much filigree and decoration. So the next few slides will show you some renderings of our proposed design. Keep in mind, these are conceptual and there are subject to change, as the Deputy City Manager mentioned, and we'll be finalizing that as we go through the design. So the next facility I want to talk about is Fire Station number 2. One of the concerns that we had about Fire Station number 2 and its existing configuration is the lack of accessibility, the lack of parity, as we say, to Fire Station 1, and kind of staff comfort and how, again, that response time occurs. The existing facility is a very large grade separation, so staff would have to go up and down stairs. What we're proposing to do is actually raise the existing residence portion because it's out of date. It doesn't meet current codes. And actually, we found that this is going to be much more cost effective for the city. And so the new portion that we construct will be at the same grade elevation as the existing apparatus bay floor. Again, that cuts down to the bottom line, increasing response time. And that's the primary reason why we're looking at that. This also allows 2 full apparatus drive-through bays, so it has maximum flexibility for the future. Go to our next slide. You can kind of see the organization again. One of the key components, again, 2 means of access to the apparatus bay floor. Currently, the Fire Station number 2 only has 1 down that flight of stairs. Again, those VRF controls in the day room and the dorm rooms for the firefighters as well. As I mentioned to you before, we're accommodating the site gradients, general neutral restrooms, and that access. Again, the bottom line, reduce response time. For the elevations of this facility, we're trying to blend into the neighborhood and kind of use some of the cues of the existing community around there. And so the much more residential materials in nature, stucco, comp shingles, things that make it look like it belongs in that neighborhood. So We still want to create a civic presence, but we want to be good neighbors as well. And lastly, let's talk about the police station. So as mentioned before, the primary thing here is to focus on the dispatch. And so we have a separate dispatch building right off the edge of the main building. That's roughly about 1,100 feet, give or take. But that would be very close to be connected breezeway to the existing facility. If you take a look at the inside, some of the components that we'll be addressing on the interior have to do with the locker facilities and the restrooms to bring them up to code compliance. We'll also be doing some aesthetic and improvements, paint, refresh, things of that nature, and some IT upgrades. So for the next few slides, I'd like to have Stephen Sibley talk to you about some of the community interaction and how we work with your community.
So we want to be a team member and part of the community as we begin the projects. So part of our efforts will be gaining like the neighbors' trust, reaching out to the neighbors, talking with them, gathering, if they'll give it to us, their contact information, so that we can keep them apprised of things that are going on the site. You know, having maybe a greet and meet at the beginning of the project. We'll be doing each month, we'll go to each one of the sites. We'll do a drone update of where we are on the sites and keep those updated on our site. Again, posting hours of work, making sure that they meet within the requirements of the city and making sure that we're meeting those time durations. And then, of course, making sure that the way we come into the site, as far as traffic, it has the least amount of impact to the neighbors around us. As a public works contractor, we've done a lot of schools. So we've worked around school districts. We understand some of the challenges. We will want to meet with the school district if they'll allow us to make sure that we're a good neighbor to them, that we keep the safety standards along the perimeter as we do the work, so that we aren't infringing on any of the students and making sure that they have a safe school site. So again, following noise ordinances, those are particularly critical when we're working around schools. We want to make sure that we meet with them, talk with them about potentially when their tests might be happening so that we don't impact those test times with heavy equipment. Again, noise, and then also construction and traffic into the sites, and making sure that we don't, work with them on when their drop-offs are, when their pickups are for school, so that we aren't bringing in concrete trucks at the same time. That really can impact everybody. So that's one of the things. And then on the next slide, we do want to be part of the community. We will start, we do try to work with local subcontractors. So we will be trying to do outreaches, from working with the local builders exchanges, putting the advertisements in the local papers so everybody knows when the projects are bidding, so that they have the ability to do that. And why local subs? It's actually an advantage for us because it's easier to get a hold of them locally. If there's service calls back afterwards, if there's warranty issues, it's always easier to get somebody that's here locally to do those warranty issues. Again, we've already teamed up with local businesses. We're working with Toma Electric, Vanessa Plumbing and Mechanical, S&M Fire, and then also on our design team is Ashley Vance Civil, which is here locally, and Krizan. So we do make a big effort. And then we also, LDA is actually a certified small business. So we bring that to the table as well. And then we want to just kind of open it up for any questions that you might have.
All right, thank you for the presentation, and also thank you, staff, for the presentation, and for both of you for working together to come to this point. Any questions from council for staff or the design build team? Go ahead, Councilmember Funk.
Okay, thank you. First of all, I want to thank everybody involved on the project teams, the staff, all of our public safety folks who've been contributing to this. And I know we all appreciate the tremendous amount of work that gets us to this point. A few questions. Just for staff on the fire engine replacement, we've got our current ladder engine. When the time comes for it to be replaced, if the standards have changed and we're doing longer cabs and longer, bigger trucks, are we going to have room in these bays for whatever that new standard might be by the time the fire truck is ready to be replaced, the big ladder truck?
Yes, is the short answer.
Good.
It's I believe it's a 70-foot deep engine bay. We can park two of our smaller pieces of equipment back to back, and any ladder truck we ever buy in the future will fit in that engine bay.
Great. Okay. Also, this is a minor point, but when I was looking at the drawings on Fire Station 1, I see stairs getting down from the upstairs to that in a couple places, but I don't see a fire pole. It's sort of classic. And I'm just wondering, have safety studies proven that it's safer to have firefighters running downstairs to get to the apparatus? Or is that just something that hasn't been worked out yet or decided?
I think that has not been completely decided yet. There's fire stations are still built with fire poles. I think stairs are more commonly used than the fire pole, based on some of our firefighters that have experience with that. So, but I think the designs are not fully all the way done to decide if there will be a pole or not.
Okay. And then moving on to some of the financial questions for staff. The tables of expenses that we've looked at, there's a whole category of other project costs that are part of the amount of the whole project, because the whole project is a $37 million project, of which this contract is 31. And could you explain a little bit about what goes into that generic category of other project costs?
Certainly. So we have beyond what the construction and that piece is, we do have a lot of soft costs, what we call soft cost, which do include, like the furniture, fixtures, and equipment that we line item out there, temporary facilities, that's been line item. And the line item that's in your agenda report that's under other project support costs are things like permits. We do have permits with the APCD, the Regional Water Quality Control Board, other consultants, other type of testing or things like that. So all of those are kind of wrapped up just for ease of convenience, but there's a lot of costs that are outside of kind of the DBE costs as well.
Okay, thank you. And you mentioned that we're looking to do bond financing for it. That's something that gets paid for out of the D20 revenues. It's not going to be, the type of thing like a school bond where it shows up on your taxes.
Correct.
Okay. And what time period of a bond are we looking at?
We're still kind of looking at what the best options are, but likely at this point, it looks like a 30-year.
Okay, so more like, taking out a mortgage to build a fire station.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. And then is it, and just sort of for scope of contract, because this is, this is what we promised people we would do, is fix the fire stations and upgrade our equipment, and to be able to attract great people and pay them properly, but also make sure they have places to work that are safe. Is it fair to say that the funding that we're going to be putting into this contract for the construction is in the neighborhood of 25% or more of the D20 revenues for quite some time period? I'm thinking we have, the calculation on that is about 6.6 million in revenues annually for D20. And we're planning to put 1.8 million a year of that money to cover the debt service on the bonds, or essentially the mortgage for this project. So that's about, that's 25%, 27% the first year, and goes out a little bit.
Right.
Yes, right, correct.
Okay. Yeah, so this is a big investment and a promise kept. Okay. And then I have a couple questions for the design team and construction team. Will you be working with the schools with regard to drop off and pickup traffic patterns?
Yes.
Okay, because we found out coordinating with the schools on that and the city's experience has worked really well and been essential on the thing. And so that our team has a lot of immediate experience about how to get the word out to parents, to where to drive and how to do it and make the things safe. And then, of course, one of our council's big priorities has been improving the jobs housing balance in our city by attracting more head of household jobs. I was really excited to see that you have local subs because that means, potentially more local workers on these jobs. And so, as we've seen, when the work stays with local firms and local workers, the money stays here. And also the experience, the apprenticeships, that the learning that is critical to developing a workforce that can command good salaries, that also stays locally. So I'm just wondering if, for F&H, or assuming the school district's interested, would you be willing to have some kind of a field trip, sponsor a field trip or job fair or something, so that local students who can walk to your job sites can see what it's like to be doing this trade work in a way that they can really understand how they might build their own careers?
Yeah, we would definitely be able to do that. We would definitely want to make sure that we do it in a safe environment.
Of course.
So it would have to be probably after hours, or we would have to set aside a day to do those walks. But probably 50% of our work that we do currently and in the past has been schoolwork. So we deal with school districts quite often, and we'd be happy to help assist with that.
Excellent. And for your subcontractors, if they're here, I'm really interested because of the apprenticeships and those kinds of opportunities are really mostly at the subcontractor level. If our subs are willing are planning to be hiring local workers and local apprentices, so that the kids who are continuing CTE now and Atascadero High and others, and moving into joint apprenticeship programs where they really learn the skills for a career, might be learning some of those skills on this site and be able to take their kids to mommy built that, daddy built that locally. Is that something that, if you can respond on that?
We will definitely work with our subcontractors as well, but F&H also self-performs quite a bit of work. We are signatory to the carpenters and the laborers.
Mm-hmm.
So our pool of workers will be coming from local and be pulled out of the local union halls.
Very good.
So, and then it's our plan that our team that's presently on the probation department, so Brendan and Todd from over there,
Mhm.
will be coming over to this project as
Okay.
well as the
And-
leads.
And you'll be using apprentices through programs. I know we have some really excellent programs that I've toured at the Plumbers and Pipe Fitters and the IBEW.
Yeah, there's all sorts of, in the design build project process, there's a skilled and trained workforce. So we will still have to pull out of the union halls for their apprentices, but we will work with them closely on that. And there are guidelines that we do have to follow.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Newsom, do you have any questions? I know we've all had a chance to speak periodically with the city manager on this project. So,
No questions, but thank you for all your hard work. That's great.
Mayor Pro Tem Daris.
Thank you. And thanks to everyone for all the hard work on this. This is really exciting. You guys, it's a beautiful building. Looking forward to seeing something like that actually, there. It's going to be really neat. The question I have is, Jerry, you mentioned that we're in ongoing discussions with the state on the use of the armory. If that should not happen, what other options do we have? And have we considered what the cost difference might be for whatever alternative for a temporary facility?
Yes, our group has been working on potential alternatives. There's another site further down Traffic Way that we've had some preliminary discussions with the property owner, and there's a potential that we could also lease that site if we needed to. So we are still moving forward with the armory and have that as a backup if that is the route we need to go instead.
And with that, I think I know which site you might be talking about. It probably would, there's plenty enough room there, but there's less building to actually use, although I don't even know what the armory building might have to be completely.
We aren't using any of the armory building. We're only just using the parking lot. So we will be bringing in all of the temporary facilities.
Okay,
We will be leasing those. So the other site further down Traffic Way, all we just need is the land.
So the cost of, because we're going to this temporary structures to house the
Yes.
trucks and all that. So
Mhm.
it's not going to be much different.
Yeah,
All right.
not a whole lot different.
Thank you.
Councilmember, if I may, we do have a plan B. However, we are going to work very earnestly with multiple levels and multiple elected officials to maintain fire service during fire season in our community. I'm sure the state will be very happy to help us with that. But we do have a plan B as well. But it's a great question.
Councilmember Peak. Okay, thank you. Now, this is a very exciting and long road to get here, and city manager has kept us appraised of things as it goes. So I have really no questions for the applicant team. I was going to ask Ms. Christensen, though, or the applicant team, I guess. When do we anticipate, schedule wise, seeing moving out the fire station 1 folks to temporary location and beginning to knock down the current fire station?
So we anticipate completing the design by the end of this year if we get started within March, and then anticipating moving them out the beginning of next year. So in January 2026, February 2026.
Slides. I wasn't sure if that was the construction date or the destruction date, but it sounds like that's the destruction date.
As we go through the design process, we'll coordinate schedules with the team. We do have options to start the demolition early. That could reduce the overall cost for the team. But yeah, there are some options on there that we will develop through the design process.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Okay, if there's no further questions, then I would like to open this item to public comment. See if any members of the public would like to comment on this item. If so, please step to the podium, and you have 3 minutes.
I will bullet point because I have a lot. Thank you, Jeff Oslin. Resident business owner still here. Temporary buildings, I think we're going to have to lease them is probably part of it. Maybe some of those should be looked at an option of purchasing them, and maybe they can be repurposed for facilities or something else for storage. So we don't have to worry about ADA. That may be a cheaper run. Making sure that we are looking at both the upgrades to police and fire 5 years ahead versus 5 years behind. A 2-story building, do we have a rooftop and access that we could possibly land a drone on? Because I think if you look at the future, our fire department might be actually throwing a drone up if they're heading the state of up in the hills. They can have a drone on site and be visually talking to their engineers and their fire personnel on the way and assessing before we ever get a CDF plane off the ground in Paso. So things to consider. Grant funds to continue working on those type of things. D20 funds, we have designated and we've said that we were going to use a large majority, of course, for police and fire, emergency services. That's great. I am concerned with cost overruns because you always have cost overruns and projects of things that are forgotten. And I want to make sure that both police, fire, and our city staff is still in competitive wages, so we are never at the bottom again, because it does cost us a fortune to have to recruit and replace our city personnel overall. So we've done a great job of stopping that bleeding, and I think we need to continue doing what we can. Want to make sure that we're also, the D20 funds aren't too aggressive, and we're not going to have enough money to fund some programs in the future for parks and recreation, because I think we do need to increase some funding to our youth in this community. Still a concern. I know we've talked about it in strategic planning on having it in the next budget. And that also comes into infrastructure and making sure that we do have the funds to replace things that we need to do. I know we're in great shape now with radio, communication, fire apparatus, whatever, but we also need to make sure we're looking at that thoroughly. And just to reiterate, I am concerned on cost overruns, because construction always has it, and we don't want to be in trouble as we really have a necessity that we missed and found during construction. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Anybody else wishing to comment on this item? Okay, is Zach making a run for the podium? Okay. Yes, if there's anybody else, we'd ask you to line up ahead of time. Go ahead. Thank
Good
you.
evening, council and city staff. Just want to say thank you. We're all excited for this project. Many of us got to see it today at our staff meeting. Our membership 100% supports fire chief and city staff for all the work that they've done, as well as the contractors that are going to be helping us out, kind of build our future in our home that we're living in, that we live 1/3 of our life in. So we're all excited for it. So I think the biggest kind of concern that we had this morning when we saw it was cleanup's going to start a little earlier, since the building's going to be 16,000 square feet. So thank you.
That's true. You want a bigger building, I guess you got to keep it clean. So, okay. Well, thank you very much. Public comment. We'll bring it back to council. Any further discussion on the part of council? Councilmember Peak.
I know our city's limited with supplies, with supply houses in general, but we have a drywall, stucco, and paint supply, 3 different locations that, preferably we spend that money here.
Understood. All right. No further discussion. I believe we are at the point in time we are ready for a motion.
I'll make the motion that we
Okay.
approve staff recommendations and move forward.
I'll
Okay.
second.
All right. We have a motion by Councilmember Newsom, a second by Councilmember Funk to adopt both of staff's recommendations on this item. Go ahead and please call the roll.
Councilmember Newsom,
Yes.
Councilmember Funk,
Yes.
Councilmember Peak,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Daris,
Yes.
and Mayor Bobo.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Thank you.
Congratulate yourselves,
Yes.
council. This is leadership from you. Thank you. Congratulations to our public safety on your new homecoming, but you made a promise and you kept it. Congratulations to the council.
Thank you all very much. We appreciate the teamwork here, because we just set the guidance and you guys are executing it marvelously so far. So thank you all. With that, we will move forward to our next item. I don't think we need a 7:48 one. Let's take a short break. Let's give it a 7-minute break. We'll be back at 7:55. Yeah, I think a poll is good. Nowadays is extra money. They got to use the stairs. You know, you got to have stairs. You know, you got to have stairs. So,
Mayor, congratulations. Congratulations, and a lot of local workers on that.
Yeah.
I knew you'd like that last.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't want to tell you. I don't want to. You got it. They're gonna hire that.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is.
Yep. It's great. It's great. It's. Congratulations. 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 Yeah. All right.
Yeah. Bring a bulldozer. Yeah, right now. Keep that in mind. Yeah. Yeah, I got your phone number. Yeah, it's 40% increase. You guys know what we're talking about. I mean, 40% if it was like $6. Basic loss. A lot of businesses. And since they bought out Templeton Services, got it worse. Time wise, okay. Think how much control do we have? I still have plans. Put my trash stuff out there. Cycling right behind cycling one. Yeah, there's a lane. I'm stabbing from get out. That's very true. Real estate, a lot of places don't have real estate for staff. You know, and I understand a little bit of this working with the driver for really $40. And again, your ass out. Yeah. It's like a cat in the, it's like a big weight. Well, when you, I mean, if you're gonna put it in a contract, be transparent. That's, I don't have a case. Yeah. That's the point. It's on top. I don't know if it's gonna show up on time, and they're later. Oh, really? Trash, recycling. Every time, or vice versa. Always one, the other is on the street and cleaning. It'll be early in the route where they're like leaving at the same time. Yeah, I'm just saying they're right there. Since they've taken their protection, they're late. Oh, really? Oh, yeah. Yeah, they're all over the farm. They miss days, do stuff. So I find, you know, I noticed my good shit out on Wednesday and they don't get my recycling on Thursday, but I have to take it out. Oh, that's not. No. That's not cool. I noticed even my house over the house, they were like, by 70 or even before. Now I noticed, I hear the truck coming at 9, 3 o'clock. They have 10. That's why. That's why Stone Center will get his, license so he can drive it. That's too much. Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, everything is relevant.
They did increase it to say $30, but I'm paying $1,000. Well, that's whatever. When it's 40%. That, now, again, that's that, yes, and again, that cost will go down. I suggested $1. But I was learning here about the slip I made, 930 or 40. You know, yeah, that's right.
That's what the intention is about. Because the only change orders are gonna be like us. Damn, I wish there was a door. You know, we want the-
I don't think we need a helicopter. The drone, but the drone thing would be good. To get up there and assess the situation before that capability. We have that full force drive. Capability would be great. But anyway, yeah, no, I agree. It's something that should be looked into. That's a big increase. No, it starts, yeah.
You're smart.
Like a drone landing pad. Now, almost question.
There will actually be processing in the day with those things. Growing. And you can start the station.
No, I'm just going. We invited you, right? You're going?
Oh, we actually have that technology where you are. Have that. Okay, just want to make sure. It's wrong.
No, I wasn't on, I was seeing all that traffic. I was like, no, okay, Heather want this, let her do it.
We're gonna go.
Okay, folks, if we could take our seats, get back in our places.
Sorry, Mayor.
All right, we have 5 council members and we'll let staff filter back into place. We'll reconvene here and we will move on to our next item, which is a discussion of our comprehensive. Oh, yeah, Luke, I guess we need for. Okay, we are back in session here after a short break. And we're going to move on to our next item, our discussion of our comprehensive financial strategy. And for that, I'm going to turn it over to our Administrative Services Director, Jerry Rangel.
Thank you very much, Mayor and Council. I am very excited tonight to bring you the comprehensive financial strategy. So our city team really put a lot of effort into this and we're pleased to bring this to you tonight. So just as kind of an overview, this comprehensive strategy is really the big picture. It's a planning tool. It includes a 7-year forecast and a 10-year look back. And we'll be talking tonight primarily about the general fund. And then in that general fund, we will be kind of just focusing on everything that's not Measure F14 because that's really dedicated toward the roads. We are on track and it's important to just continue to prioritize our resources. And there's no action required tonight, just receive and file. There are 6 components of the financial strategy and additional information can be found online as well. So there is a QR code on the staff report and additional information is available on our website. This very familiar looking graph represents the cornerstone of the council's financial strategy. A well-defined financial strategy is crucial to meeting the challenges of the ups and downs in the economy. The city's general fund revenues are similar to the graph's curved line. Revenues shoot up in economic boom times and then down when the economy slumps. Council has historically maintained the goal of consistent service levels through these ups and downs and put away money in good times to use for times when it wasn't as good. The focus of our last budget and the three major strategic goals for the 2023-25 period were economic and community vibrancy, fiscal and infrastructure efficiency and sustainability, and ensuring public safety and providing exceptional city service. Council will review these goals and update as necessary in the strategic planning session later on this month. The city's mission statement guides our decisions, large and small, and also focuses the city's priorities, actions, and investments. The mission statement is working together to serve, build community, and enhance quality of life. We've been able to accomplish a lot and made a great progress on some very ambitious goals, as we just saw with our fire station and police station. The next item on the agenda tonight will go over even more of those accomplishments. The full report is again can be accessed with a QR code online. To support the 2-year budget process, a 7-year projection has been included to better understand the long-term impacts of budget decisions. While this up here on the screen is really too small to see much of it, it is in the agenda package. It's a valuable planning tool, and it offers a broader perspective on the organization's financial outlook and ensuring reserves are adequate for the future. The 7-year timeframe aligns with strategic planning standards and provides a reasonable future projection. Staff has estimated key revenues and expenses, extending them over the next 7 years. And we will continue to upgrade this and refine it as we move along the budget process. And a newer upgraded version will also be included with the city budget document. The general fund is the city's primary operating fund and is the fund that the council has the most discretion in directing expenditures and accomplishing its priorities. Property tax and sales tax are the city's top 2 general fund revenues, making up about 65 to 75% of the total general fund revenue. Transient occupancy tax, or TOT, is the next single largest source of general fund revenue at 6% of the total general fund revenue. Property tax is one of the city's largest sources of revenue, and it accounts for over 1/3 of all general fund revenues. Property tax revenue is based on the assessed values of property as of January 1st of each year. The city receives revenues based on those assessments in those following December and April timeframes. Increases in assessed value increase the city's revenue. And with the strong permits and construction activity in the city, growth in assessed valuations above the consumer price index is expected. The city receives between 16 and 18% of the 1% of property tax charged on assessed values. So if a new $800,000 home was built and sold in town, the city would receive an additional $1,360 annually. The current year property tax revenue is projected to be about 4.3% higher than last year. Increases are expected to ramp up for the next few years after that, reflecting some of these new developments coming online. The 5 outer years are expected to reflect continued growth, ranging between 4 and 5.7% per year. Sales tax is collected on the sales of tangible property, and the city sales tax rate is 8.75. This includes the state's base sales tax amount of 7.25 plus Measure D20 of 1% and another 0.5% from Measure F14. The city typically receives between 30 and 35% of its general fund revenue from the combination of the base sales tax of 1% and the Measure D20 revenues. The city's sales tax revenue is made up of different sectors or industries. Fuel and service stations are the largest sector, making up about 20% of the total sales tax revenue. Sales tax from fuel prices has historically been very volatile in California in particular, and this can have an impact on our revenues. The city's other leading sectors are the state and county-wide pools and the building and construction industry. This graph illustrates fiscal year 2024 versus fiscal year 2023 revenue by industry group. It shows how each of Atascadero's sectors performed during the 2-year comparison period. The amount that the city earns in sales tax per capita has improved with the introduction of Measure D20 revenue, but is still the lowest of all the cities in the county. Atascadero receives just under $410 in sales tax revenue per resident. Looking back at 2016-17 data, before D20 was in existence and before the current economic development that we have now, the city received only $116 in sales tax per capita. So we're definitely making progress and we're continuing to move in the right direction. The state sales tax is the most volatile of all of the major revenues and is heavily influenced by the state of the economy. HDL, the city's sales tax consultant, estimates that statewide sales tax will continue to be sluggish this year, but will continue to grow again by 25-26 and going forward. Sales tax is expected to be about the same this year as it was in the prior year, but is expected to grow about 2% next year, 3% in 26-27, and then range between 2.7 and 3% for the next 5 years, spurred by those economic development efforts. Transient occupancy tax, or TOT, is collected from guests staying at hotels within the city and is charged at a rate of 10% of rents paid. Revenues took a hit during COVID, but have since come back and broke the $2 million mark for the first time in 21-22. TOT has been fairly flat for the last few years. A 6% increase in room supply is expected in SLO County through 2026. And many of these rooms will be built in our city to the north. However, this will continue to put pressure on room rates in all of North County and in Atascadero. But with the addition of more rooms in Atascadero and the overall growth in tourism in the area, it's expected that TOT will continue to grow going forward. Operating costs are the bulk of the general fund expenditure side. The 4 general categories are employee services, operations, special programs and projects, and capital projects. The city is a service organization, so the largest portion of the general fund expenditures is dedicated to employee services. In fact, 65% of budgeted general fund expenditures for fiscal year 24-25 were allocated directly toward the cost of employee services. The city has always been lean on the number of staff, however. Staff positions are only added to the extent that the general fund can bear those costs, which really limits the amount of services that the employees that we do have can provide. There are currently 143 budgeted full-time positions. Per capita staffing can be a good comparison between cities of their respective staffing levels. This graph illustrates the ratio of police officers and firefighters to residents, and Atascadero is low compared to the other cities. All of the city's departments are similarly staff lean. This impacts the volume of activities that the staff is able to accomplish, and in another reason to focus first on the city's key priorities. Atascadero's cautious use of resources carries over also into very lean salaries and wages. There's significant competition between agencies for the best employees. The market for high-quality employees is tight, and employers are competing. With one of the historically lowest per capita revenue cities in the county, Atascadero has always had a difficult time in offering those salaries that are on par with other agencies. Measure D20 has made large strides toward enhancing staff salaries and helping to bring them more in alignment with other agencies. This is often a moving target, however, because other agencies have passed similar measures to Measure D20 and have given their staff similar salary increases. The labor market is a dynamic environment, and while strides forward definitely help Atascadero from falling further behind, they don't necessarily put us near the head of the pack either, as neighboring agencies continue to sharpen their competitive edge as well. Continuing increases in costs to employee health care, the state's minimum wage, and the city's pension system, CalPERS, have also put additional pressure on employee service costs. The 7-year projection assumes wage increases according to the current memorandums of understanding, MOUs, CalPERS increases in the normal rates and unfunded accrued liability, or UAL, and increases for healthcare costs. Operations costs are expenditures related to the regular, ongoing operation of departments, including supplies, tools, utilities, insurance, contract services, and other similar expenditures. These costs are managed carefully each budget cycle with minimal increases, usually between 1% to 2% per budget cycle. Utilities and insurance costs in particular have been increasing significantly over the last few budget cycles, and we expect to see that trend continue. Long-term costs are those things that are being used on a regular basis, but the costs are large and infrequent and therefore don't appear as obvious as ongoing operational costs. This graph illustrates the impact of those hidden costs. The lower dotted line represents the level of expense in the budget, and the upper solid line includes the real costs of all of the services that we provide. Long-term costs are things like roads, vehicles, equipment, buildings, technology, and employee leave accruals. We've made incredible strides toward funding many of these categories and have funded vehicles and technology and are working on the other categories as well. While the need for long-term costs reserves may seem daunting, it is not unlike what other cities face. The nature of government and the citizens' desire for services make funding these difficult. It's good to remember, however, that not all of these expenses will come due at once, and planning is key. Atascadero is ahead of the game by looking at these costs, analyzing them, and looking for solutions. General fund reserves are often thought to be one of the indicators of fiscal stability of an organization. Council's policy on reserves sets a general floor on the level of reserves as a percentage of general fund expenditures at 20%. The level of reserves is evaluated at each budget cycle using 11 criteria, both independently and in conjunction with one another, to determine the prudent level of general fund reserves for each budget cycle. The spike in reserves total in fiscal year 21-22 was primarily due to the increase in from Measure D20 and the receipt of Federal American Rescue Plan Act, the ARPA, Coronavirus State Local Fiscal Recovery Funds. It's a mouthful. So the ARPA funds totaled about $7.2 million and were received in fiscal years 21-22 and 22-23. Those general fund reserve balances include funding for many of the projects that have been committed to but not yet spent. We've come a long way in the last 30 years, and with our strategy of analyzing the long-term impacts of each decision, we've been able to keep service levels consistent throughout the changes in the economy. The 7-year projection is critical to that analysis to make sure that we're not building in too many costs that our general fund can't accommodate. The 7-year projection included with this document assumes the use of reserves through fiscal year 2030. However, this turns around by fiscal year 2031 and we start building reserves again. This is a very conservative and preliminary outlook, and we will continue to refine it through the budget process. Fiscal policies are very important to have in place to guide these budgeting decisions. These policies impact a wide range of decisions regarding operations, cash management, debt and reserve management, among others, and they can be found online with the appendices. And that concludes my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you very much. I'm going to start on my left. See, Councilmember Peak, do you have any questions? Okay, Mayor Pro Tem Darius, Councilmember Funk.
One quick one. The reserves, does that include the building maintenance fund where we've been stashing the money from D20 to pay for some of the soft costs of the public safety facilities project?
That particular graph was only general fund reserves, not including the building maintenance reserves.
Okay. Good. Does that include what the fund where we're keeping the money for ultimately replacing the things like the ladder truck, the fire truck?
Correct. That would be in the vehicle and equipment replacement fund, which is also not included in that graph.
Okay.
Correct.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Newsom. All right, thank you. I only had one question just to clarify or to make sure I heard you correctly. On the sales tax per capita, did I hear you correctly that while now it's almost $410 per capita, that in 2016, it was only $116 per capita?
Yes, that is correct, Mayor.
Wow. So if you doubled that with D20, does that number include F14 or no?
That does not.
Does not. Okay. But so even if you doubled that, then allowing for the additional cent for D20, we are way above doubling. So this shows significant progress in,
Yes.
in generating sales tax. Excellent. Okay. And also, it's not part of this financial strategy per se, but I see a side effect of this financial strategy is that we were able to refinance our redevelopment agency bonds with a AAA rating, correct?
A plus, I
A
believe.
plus?
Yes.
Okay, what I mean, a very high rating. And I think that's a tribute to your work, the city manager's work and the entire team of being, financially responsible in how we deal with our and have dealt with our limited resources. So thank you very much. Let's open this up to the members of the public, see if anybody would like to comment on this item. Okay, seeing no one approach, we'll bring it back to council. And this item is a receive and file, so there's no motion required. Unless the city clerk says otherwise. Okay. That being the case, then we will move on to item C3, update on council goals and action. And this will also be with Deputy City Manager Laura Christensen.
Yes, but she is finishing a drink of water. So
So
in
she's
the meantime, this item is in preparation for you for goal setting. We won't be discussing this next week. So we wanted to make sure you had all this in time to see your progress and the work plan. And with that, I will turn it over to Deputy City Manager Christensen.
Good recovery there, Jim.
Thank you, City Manager
Keller.
Lewis. Thank you, Mayor and City Council. A year ago-ish, we came before you and started talking about some of the action plan accomplishments that we had seen in the first 6 months of your 2-year action plan. Now that we're about 18 months in, we want to just go over some more of that leading into our the workshop you'll be having in a couple of weeks to set the next set of goals for the 2-year budget. Since we do have a new council member and some new people and staff, I'll just give a little brief background on it. So every 2 years, as part of the budget process, the city council comes together and discusses what their key priorities, goals, and strategic plan are for the next 2 years. In that discussion, that then guides the budget, and then we bring forward following that and staff coming together and discussing what that work plan will look like over the next 2 years. That then guides the budget that we then bring forward to council in June for adoption. Part of the 23-25 budget process was a pretty significant goal setting process. From that, you came up with three key priorities, economic and community vibrancy, fiscal and infrastructure efficiency and sustainability, and ensuring public safety and providing exceptional city services. These are actually three goals that were similar to the ones that were from the previous two-year budget cycle, because as these were defined further by the key focus areas, have really been the focus of the city council and a lot of what was discussed with the public, with staff, moving into things like Measure D20, and then on to what we do with some of those revenues and how we, like we did tonight, do what we say we were going to do. And I think tonight, some of the items we talked about moving into today, into this item, really set the stage with the financial strategy, with the adoption, with the approval of a contract for the public safety facility. These really are showing that your key priorities are being met, and that these work plans that staff has come up with, that we really are achieving your key focus areas. So I'm going to just highlight some of those. They are detailed much further in the attachment to this staff report. It tells you what each one of the items are and where we're at with it, whether it's something that's been completed, if it's in progress, if it's ongoing. You'll notice that I don't know, 2/3 of what you see in there is either in progress or ongoing, because these are large scale commitments to the community. So they either are things that will continue on indefinitely until council changes a priority, or these are longer scale projects that will take several years, that started almost 4 years ago and will continue on until, again, such time as it's completed or council changes a priority. Looking at our first strategic priority of council, economic and community vibrancy, just want to highlight some of the accomplishments. So the ECR project, that was a huge one that did actually break ground in June 2024, and construction is expected to be completed in summer 2025. We continue to be on track to meet that timeframe. As City Manager Lewis discussed earlier, you can start to see as the K-rails move, you can really see the progress now as we're in the middle of the street, what it's going to look like. And the community now has the opportunity to really see that vision coming to life. The council actually selected a contractor architect team for the Centennial Plaza project. So we're moving forward with that and working on completion of the purchase development agreement. So that is one of our ongoing staff priorities, is to move that project forward. Del Rio Marketplace is under construction, Barrel Creek's in plan check process, and Del Rio Ranch was recently approved. So those are three big development projects that continue to move forward here in the community. There's approved plans for a development of a neighborhood retail center at Santa Barbara and El Camino Real. Again, another big development project for the city. The general plan update should be completed this year. And part of that has also been work now on the comprehensive overhaul of the zoning code to move together in conjunction with this general plan update. There's been continued installation of fiber optic broadband infrastructure. So that's been really cool. That Astound was actually able to break ground, bring some of that fiber optic through. They've been able to now start offering some of that to commercial and residential customers within this area. And they actually they won a grant. And so they'll be able to put fiber into more areas in the city than was originally contracted for. And then we continue with really large-scale economic development efforts and continued cooperation with downtown businesses. So that's really been moving forward with that downtown vibrancy. So all of this kind of coming together. Excuse me. And then segues perfectly into economic and community vibrancy. So I'm going backwards, sorry. Here we go. into our second priority, which is fiscal and infrastructure efficiency and sustainability. So as we know tonight, we just awarded the contract for the public safety facilities project. So that's huge. As we just talked about, refunding the 2004 and 2010 bond issues. There's continued collaboration with the Friends of the Charles Paddock Zoo, moving forward with some where they are now moving forward with some fundraising projects to look at some additional upgrades to some of our animal, to some of the habitats there. We've completed rebuilding of the Lake Park Pier. That was a grant that the city got, and moving forward with that. Then we renewed Measure F14 as part of Measure that was L24. And so that passed with almost 71% of the vote. So continued funding for road projects. We took delivery of a wildland engine. And then just there's a ton of things that staff has been doing for transparency and accountability. New software for ERP for our financing, new software for asset management, just a ton of new software projects moving forward that will help deliver information faster to staff and to the public. And then on the last, the fiscal and infrastructure efficiency and sustainability, just some big ones. I'm sorry, I don't know why I keep going backwards. Sorry, and I'm having a really hard time seeing with this big thing here, so I apologize. Here we go. Ensuring public safety and providing exceptional city services. So in this one, we, as was mentioned, we continue to hire and retain an adequate level of staffing. That's been really huge in doing that. It keeps our HR manager very busy, keeps our departments very busy, but that also means that we're getting quality staff here. We had our second annual All for Atascadero All In, and we launched a new program called Cookies and Kudos, where staff actually nominate their fellow staff members for ways that they have either provided exceptional service, they're helping to build community, things that align with the city's mission statement. And so we've been able to celebrate, we've had 2 of those so far, we've been able to celebrate our fellow staff members. We continue to support and promote mental health and wellness services for our public safety with ongoing programs and processes. We police created the special enforcement team, which focuses on, among other things, the downtown corridor. There's the culmination of the AZA accreditation efforts that will be in March of 2025, where we'll find out if we're being accredited. And then we continue to work with the school district to make sure that we are collaborating on ways to better serve our community members, youth services, youth sports, that type of stuff. And then there's just continued robust communications regarding emergency preparedness, again, as City Manager Lewis mentioned earlier in his update, especially with oncoming storms and that we continue to be out there in the community, the fire department, especially with a lot of that that messaging and meeting with homeowners to assess homes. That's helped with, we've heard from some homeowners that that's helped with getting them, with them retaining their insurance. So there's some programs and messaging that continues to be out there with people working on hardening their homes or fuels management, that type of stuff. So there's been a lot, and you can see more in that, but a lot that's been done over the past 18 months and especially over the last year that aligns with those key priorities. And with that, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer. Thanks.
All right, thank you. I'll start this time on the right. Councilmember Newsom, any questions?
No, but a comment of how much staff has accomplished has been amazing. It's nice to see all that we have accomplished together as a team. And then also those kudos for cookies. It's really hard to go by the offices and not eat the cookies.
Okay, good admission. Okay, Councilmember Fung.
And I likewise just want to recognize and thank the staff for a tremendous amount of work. And we're just getting so much done And part of that is because the staff works well together as a team across all the different functional areas. People notice that. They comment on that to me when I meet them out in the community. And business people that are doing work with us, are really pleased to do so because it makes life easier for everyone. Because we work well together, we like to work together, and we try and mirror that in this council and model that in the respect we have for one another. So thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Perez.
Yes, staff most definitely deserves recognition for all the hard work they've done on everything. We've got, and we're going to have an incredibly busy year. A lot of great things happening this year and the next couple of years. So it's exciting to be a part of it up here. And it's and I'm glad to see that we have such a great group of people that's making it happen. So thank you all. Thank you.
Councilmember Peak.
Yeah, coming into this is a exhaustive list that looks, there's a lot going on here, and I really appreciate the prioritization with the highlighting colors for someone like me.
Okay. Speaking of that, I do have a concern though, and that is that this looks, this is a comprehensive list or exhaustive list, as Councilmember Peak noted. My concern is that you work too hard on this. My concern and question to the city manager and to you is, how much time does it take to keep track of all this stuff? And do we need a list this comprehensive and big, or could we be more, could we slim this down? I realize, a lot of these things are going to happen automatically. Not necessarily automatically, they take work, but they're things you're going to work on automatically without guidance from us. And do we need to slim this down? Maybe this is something we could discuss during our strategic planning meeting.
And yes.
Okay. Thank you. Just wanted to kind of make that point, because we appreciate everything that the staff does, and we appreciate, the thoroughness of the reports and everything, but we are, I think we realize your time is limited. You can't do everything. And the more time you spend on one thing, the less time you have available to spend on other things. And so I get concerned sometimes when I see something that's almost overly thorough, because I'm wondering, how much time it took you all to do that. With that, let's open this up and see if we have any public comment.
Jeff Oslin, resident, Atascadero. Public comment is real simple. That's a really good report, even though it probably is very time consuming, but that's why you get a 71% vote to keep the roads going. And that's why D20 passes. And that's why you don't hear the city of Atascadero on local radio getting bashed for things like the North City and the South City and West cities. So we do accomplish what we claim we're going to accomplish. Our city is probably the most fiscal responsible city in the county. We get more out of our employees than probably anybody. We're not prima donnas here. So it's kudos to the entire staff. We do a really good job for not having any money, and we pull it off weekly, daily, monthly, whether it's public works, whether it's planning. The attitude and the culture in this city is incredible. I mean, you have cities where police and fire hate each other. We don't. We all get along. Public Works gets along with police and fire and vice versa. People don't run when they see our city manager. They try and go up and say hello, which tells you we're doing everything right. And therefore, as much as we want to take away some of that work, I think our residents actually appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Okay, seeing none, we'll bring it back to the council. And again, I see this is a receive and file item, so there's no need for a motion. So with that, we can move on to the next item, which is council announcements and committee reports. And I'll start on my left with Councilmember Peak.
No committee since last meeting, but looking forward to Finance Committee on Thursday, my first one.
All right, very good. Okay, Mayor Pro Tem Perez.
I think you have a week or two, so nothing to report, and I don't think I have anything coming up next week either, so good.
Okay, all right, Councilmember Funk.
Yes, HSOC Executive Committee meets on the 19th, 3 to 5. And I would note that Wendy Lewis from ECHO that we heard from earlier tonight is now also a member of that group because she's now chairing one of the ECHO committees. So I appreciate her contribution to that leadership. I enjoyed being part of the community cleanup with Mayor Borbeau. We actually teamed together to haul a lot of stuff out of the creek and pull it up, and and a lot of folks in the community, including ECHO residents and clients who were part of that team and cleanup. So thank you, everybody. And then on Thursday, January 30th, I attended the REACH conference in Santa Barbara. So a little bit more about that. They're looking at promoting economic development across the region through a combination of good jobs, workforce development, and housing. And they are still pretty enamored of the Vandenberg space stuff. It's sexy, it's cool. But they are, looking a little more practically at some of the, particularly workforce development things like we were talking about earlier tonight. And they are also part of a 6-county regional collaboration called Uplift, because Reach wasn't big enough. We needed to go bigger. But it's also getting some state money for regional planning. And they just, for example, awarded a grant to the Joint Apprenticeship Training Program in San Luis Obispo that's led jointly by contractors and Local 403 of the Pipe Fitters and Plumbers Union. I've toured that program and also the one at IBEW for electrical workers with Local 639. And those kinds of workforce development things are central to what REACH is doing in looking at how do we train up the workforce that makes it attractive for employers to bring good jobs, and a workforce that has the skill level to command the kind of wages that allow them to afford to live here. So it's all connected. And that's my report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Newsom.
Thank you. Losing track of the months after recovering from the flu. I missed you all last meeting. Started last week with the big slow cog meeting, lasted about 3 hours. Items to note: slow cog approved a 16-month contract with Ventura Transit System. They released the North County Mobility Master Plan, and the board adopted a 2025 slow cog state and federal and Central Coast Coalition legislative platform. So we've been pretty busy. So thank you.
Thank you. I have nothing to report committee-wise, but a couple of quick announcements. This Thursday, I don't know if the city manager mentioned this, but the State of the City, Chamber of Commerce is hosting a State of the City meeting, get-together presentation, and some of our staff, including our city manager, Jim Lewis, will be in, our zoo director, I believe Terry Banish will all be speaking, and myself, along with members of the chamber, and that's Thursday morning at the theater. 7:30 a.m. Yes, and I think you can still get a ticket online with the chamber. Mentioned that, and then before our next regular council meeting on the 21st, Friday evening, we will begin our strategic planning session on Friday evening, and then we will continue that on Saturday morning. So if people want to come and see us make the sausage, that is to, develop, refine our strategic plan, that would be the time to come and do it here in City Hall in the chambers. And lastly, a passing of note, Dan the Barber passed away recently, and Dan the Barber opened his shop in Atascadero the year I was born. So he was at it a long time, cutting hair into his 90s, and he still only charged $10. So, you give him 12, and that, he thought that was generous. So I think he did it maybe more for the conversation, but he was cutting hair into his 90s. And it's a good thing he had a barber client privilege, because I'm sure he heard a lot of stories over the years. And a few confessions from people, but he will be missed. And so I wanted to make note of that. So, okay, with that, any individual determinations from any council member? Okay, if not, then we are adjourned. Thank you all.